So welcome to my channel, that's what we call the good life. Today I'm going to be planting my onion sets, and I'm going to be giving you some top tips on how you plant them and how to look after them as well. And towards the end of the video I will actually be planting them, so you can get an idea of how they look and how mine are going to look as well. So if you've not already subscribed to my channel, if you could please do so, because you'll get lots of helpful hints and tips all throughout the year from my allotment, my home garden, and from time to time my home kitchen. Now onions are a really easy thing to grow, and they're incredibly versatile as well, because we use them most days for eating, whether it's putting them in a cooked dish or whether it's putting them in salads. I quite often make my own coleslaw, so it's a really good staple to grow, and it's really simple. And I'm going to be going through some foolproof ways so you can get some really fantastic onions this year. Now you can start them off in module trays a little bit earlier, but personally I just pop mine straight into the ground. I find it an awful lot easier because I have so many other things that I'm juggling, you know, home wise and also with my garden. It's easier just to pop them straight into the ground, so you can plant them straight into the ground, you know, in March or April time. So, and you expect to get your onions around July time, maybe August if the weather isn't quite as good as we would like it to be, but generally speaking onions are generally ready to harvest around July. So onions like well drained soil, so if you've got well drained soil that would be better, but obviously we just have to put them where we've got them, but that's their perfect conditions. So I like to use onion sets. I know some people grow them from seed, but I've pretty much always used onion sets because they're just a really easy way of planting them. They're basically, if we get them out of the bag, they are basically just miniature onions that are heat treated, so would hopefully crop better than just putting seeds out. So the first thing you need to do is to take your onion sets out of the bag and just to look through them. Occasionally you can get the odd shriveled up or mouldy one, and you don't want to be planting something like that because it's not going to grow into a nice onion. You don't want to be, especially don't want to be encouraging mould into your garden. Oh look, do you know what, there we go, we have one there that is a little bit mouldy. So that's what we'd want to remove. If you've got any ones like that, or any that are really badly shriveled, you want to discard those. You don't want to be planting them. So I'm just having a little quick look through now. I think that was the only one actually, which is unusual. You often get a few more than that. I've obviously got a really good pack. Now the way you plant onions is, I know it sounds really obvious, but if you've never done it before, I have seen the odd person get it round the wrong way. You have pointy side up and the root like that in the ground. Sometimes the onion sets, the pointy side isn't as obvious, so when you're planting them, basically they go down into the ground like that. You only plant them just below the soil as well. Some people put them down a little bit more than just below, but don't go burying them really deep, and don't go having them right on the top of the soil. They do need to at least be just below the soil for them to grow properly. So I see a lot of people getting those basic things wrong. The other thing is spacing. So about 4 to 5 inches apart along the rows, and then about 12 inches between the rows. It's really tempting not to have your rows wide enough, and I speak from experience myself. I think I don't need the rows that much, I can fit extra in. The problem is if you make the rows too narrow, it then makes weeding really difficult. And again, I speak from experience, because onions grow up and they don't do any ground cover. The one thing you are very susceptible with onions are weeds, and for them to grow. So to have your rows that little bit wider so you can weed them that little bit easier does make a big difference, because the last thing you want is for the rows to be too closely together and for you to then end up damaging your onions as they're growing, which is really easy to do, to knock one out and to damage it, and then it can encourage disease and they might not grow as well, and you definitely don't want that. So the other thing that can happen is your onions can bolt, and we'll all get some that bolt throughout the year. Don't think you've failed, because I will get a few that bolt. Now if you see any that bolt, as soon as you see the little bud, you just nip it off straight away. Those onions will still form bulbs. They probably won't be as big, and they won't store as well. So what you do is you eat those first. The reason onions can bolt, or the reasons they say they bolt, is sometimes when you put them out, if it's a little bit too cold, so if where you are and you're still getting quite a lot of cold weather, then don't put them out yet. In Kent it's already quite mild, so I'm quite happy to put mine out. And the other reason they can bolt is in really dry hot spells, and I would say that is the more likely one, when it gets really dry. So you just have to keep them really well watered, which is good for them anyway, to keep them watered, because that helps the bulbs swell out, and it also helps with bolting. What I find is the red ones bolt more than the white ones, and they always do. The ones I'm planting today are Centurion F1, and my red ones, which I will be planting in a couple of weeks, will be Red Baron. So without further ado, I'm now on the plot, and I'm now going to start putting my onions in and showing you how I do it. So first of all, we've dug and we've raked the ground over, and we've also put some markers in so we can plant our onions in a straight row. The easiest way of doing that is just 2 canes with a bit of string. Ridiculously cheap, ridiculously easy. You think you can plant in a straight row, but literally none of us can. So I've got all my onions out there ready. An essential bit of kit is definitely a dibber. While you can just push them straight in, we think that the soil's soft. Sometimes the soil isn't quite as soft as we would like it. So to have a dibber is useful for so many jobs on the allotment, and especially useful for when we do this. So all we basically do is push the dibber just into the soil very gently, and you just pop the onion in. Very, very simple. And like I said, you put it just below the soil, so that's probably about perfect. Okay, and then we do about 4 inches apart, like so. So I hope you're enjoying and getting value from this video. If you've enjoyed watching this video and you would like to, we will put a link where you can buy me a coffee, and there will be one in the description. Like I say, don't feel that you have to. If you can only just subscribe, like and comment, I am still more than grateful. So again, we just push them in there. I don't measure them exactly, I don't know what other people do. I roughly do 4 inches, and as you can see, I've got it's about 12 inches, which is about a ruler in between. I always think it's a ruler or a very big boot, all depending how big your feet are. There we go. So you just pop them in really easily, really simply, just like so. So I've got my onion sets in the ground. I actually got 3 rows in. So I push them all in and I use my dibber, but what I then do afterwards is I just gently brush a little bit of the soil over, so you don't have to cover them like loads, just a thin layer, so just crumble a little bit over the top. You know, you don't have to cover them up too much. And then the next thing I do, which I do think is really vital, is I do put a little bit of netting over. This netting is purely temporary and just to stop the birds pulling my onion sets up, because the times I put my onion sets in and then I've come up the allotment, you know, a few days later to find that the birds have pulled them out, is just, you know, it happens too often. So I've just put some hoops in, I've got a little bit of netting. I use a scaffolding net, which I buy a great big reel. It's really, really durable. I use it all over the allotment. If you want to get some for yourself, we are Amazon affiliates and we do get paid a little bit for you buying it, but there will be a link up in the top screen and in the description if you want to get it.